Well, we have a bright, sunny, early April morning here, starting out right at dawn so we can get a good start on the day here. Go out and do a day of train chasing and photographing. We're starting here in Omaha, Nebraska, and our itinerary today should take us across the river into Iowa, see some of the Chicago Northwestern, as well as see some of the operation in the Omaha area with the Union Pacific and Burlington Northern as well. First thing we're going to do is go by and pick up a copy of the train lineup to see what trains are going to be operating on the Union Pacific today, interchanging with the Chicago Northwestern. That'll give us a good idea of where to be and when to see the action. We also have with us today our radio scanner, so we can listen to the radio chatter between the dispatcher and the train crews. That'll also give us a good clue of where to be and when, so we'll maximize our photo opportunities today. We're spending the first part of our morning here down at the old Burlington and Union stations here in Omaha. We're on the platform of the old Burlington Station, which is used by the new Amtrak station. That's the first train that we were able to catch today, was Amtrak number 6, the California Zephyr, coming into town. That train comes in, spends a little bit of time here while they refuel it and put water in the cars, take up some mail on and off. Today we had sort of an unusual situation that there was a problem with one of the head-end cars. This particular car was what Amtrak calls a material handling car. It contains a sealed car full of U.S. mail heading for Chicago. This particular car had a mechanical problem. It had to be set out. You can see it behind me here on the station track. And while Amtrak was sending out the one car, we saw a Burlington Northern local heading west, right past the depot here, heading out to do some work probably towards Ashland, Nebraska, out towards the west. At about the same time, a Union Pacific local came out with some cars for the piggyback ramp, which is across the way here. Union Pacific has used the old Union Station platform tracks to set up their piggyback operation. They load and unload truck trailers from rail cars, as well as international shipping containers from double-stack rail cars. One thing you see a lot of here in Omaha are KLine double-stack containers. We have a special arrangement with Union Pacific that ships KLine containers full of Nebraska beef to the West Coast for export to Japan. To load those on and off the rail cars, we use a special piece of heavy equipment which is nicknamed the piggybacker, which simply drives up and picks up the container off the top of the stack and drives over and puts it on a truck chassis to haul away to load to the next load of beef. Shortly after those trains went by, we saw a Burlington Northern coal train heading on down the hill, across the river towards Iowa, with a load of coal for over there. Each of those cars in that train carries about 100 tons of coal, and you put together 110 cars of those, plus you have about a 14,000 ton train, including the weight of the cars. Pretty hefty train. Next train that we saw was a Burlington Northern local, which is still off to my left over here. The way the Burlington Northern gets to Council Bluffs to interchange cars with the Union Pacific, first they have to back out of their yard, which is down along the river in Omaha, back out of their yard up next to the Amtrak station, and then wait for clearance to cross the bridge over the Union Pacific yard in Council Bluffs, Iowa. And about the time they were backing up the Burlington Northern local, a Union Pacific train came across the river with a long string of loaded hopper cars with grain heading south. This particular train is what's called a haulage train. It contains cars for the Kansas City Southern, which will be delivered to them in Kansas City, and they will handle them down towards the Gulf Coast. Hopefully from here we'll be able to continue our trek on across and see some of the action over in Iowa. We're standing now at the east end of Missouri Valley, Iowa. This is a location on the Chicago Northwestern where the line from Chicago splits into two lines. One line heads down to Council Bluffs and Omaha. The other line heads on west to an interchange with the Union Pacific at Fremont, Nebraska. Heading out east of here, we hope to see a lot of action on the Chicago Northwestern. Right now there's one train which is working its way into town from the east that we saw right before we set up our camera here, which is a double stack train coming from Chicago heading towards the Pacific coast. Hopefully we'll see it come through here in a little while. We just came from the other end of town. There's a mixed freight train on the west end of town rather, that is busy switching in the yard, and it looks like our double stack train is almost here. Never mind, here's our train that's switching that was on the other end of the town. Here it comes. Okay, it looks like he's backed up to pick up the rear end of his train and continue on westward. And as soon as he clears town, I expect that our double stack train will be right behind him. Well, our manifest train has connected his rear end. The brakeman hooked up the air hoses and they made their air test. We're going to have a little bit of a wait because he's got to walk back to the front end of the train since they don't have cabooses anymore. And as soon as he finishes the hike, and we'll be ready to move on out here and should see our stacker come through.
Go down to Omaha. I got a better stick. We got everybody blocked here.
Well, our mixed train on the Chicago Northwestern, that mixed manifest with a little variety of everything, has finished switching their cars in Missouri Valley, backed up, got the rest of their train, made their air test. Then they had to back up some more to head south towards Council Bluffs, the line along the river, because the switch is right in the middle of the yard. So once he put his train together, he had to back all the way up and head south. Well, we have an interesting situation on the Chicago Northwestern today. They're doing some track work west of Missouri Valley here on the line to Fremont, and that has everything kind of bottled up. All the trains are trying to figure out where they're going to go, and the dispatchers are pulling their hair out. This particular train behind me right here is a double stack train, which normally would interchange with the Union Pacific at Fremont and keep on going west to the west coast with these international containers, which these containers get loaded on ships for the Far East, for Japan, Taiwan, etc. And at the moment, the dispatcher told them that they're going to have to wait a while because of all the other trains that are bottled up with the track work. So they just got off their locomotive to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken and have some lunch. So instead of waiting for them to get back with the birds, we're going to get in our car and keep rolling east and see what we find. Right after we left Missouri Valley, the first train that we saw was a westbound coal train, an empty train which was heading back for the Powder River Basin of Wyoming to get another load of black diamonds. That was just a few miles east of town. From there we went to Logan, Iowa, and we were hoping to catch a westbound train based on what we saw on the signals, but they changed the lineup on us, and while we were waiting for the westbound and eastbound snuck up on us, and we couldn't get a really good picture of it. It was an eastbound double stack train with more containers from the Far East heading for the heartland of America. From there, we proceeded on past the town of Dunlap, Iowa, and got a nice shot of a westbound merchandise train. Wide variety of equipment on it, heading in probably towards Council Bluffs to switch out the cars and interchange them with various railroads there. We're standing now a few miles west of the town of Denison, Iowa. We've gone about 40 miles east from Missouri Valley, following the Chicago Northwestern Railroad. This is their line, which eventually makes it all the way east to Chicago. It's a very heavily traveled main line. And as it climbs east out of Missouri Valley, it's following the Boyer River, which it crosses several times, including on this one bridge right behind us. If railroads tend to follow rivers when they have to climb a grade, because it gives you they have an easier grade for them to follow as they work their way over the ups and downs in the terrain. A few miles the other side of Denison, we reach a point called the Iowa Divide. At that point, any rain that falls east of there drains into the Mississippi River Valley, while any rain that falls west of there drains into the Missouri River Valley. Also following the Boyer River through this same area is another rail line called the Chicago Central and Pacific, which is basically a small regional railroad that goes from Chicago to Omaha and Sioux City, Iowa. It tends to parallel the Chicago Northwestern through this area, but we don't expect to see any trains on it today since they're doing some maintenance work. While we're waiting for some action on the Chicago Northwestern, we have a good opportunity here to watch the maintenance crew do some work on the Chicago Central and Pacific. This particular gang that we see behind us here working is doing a process known as surfacing and lining. They have a low spot in the track on the approach to the bridge here. They come through with a three-step process. First thing they do is come through with a ballast car and dump a lot of new rock ballast on the track where they've got a low spot. The next part of the process is to come through with a ballast regulator to distribute the ballast evenly along the track. Finally, a machine called a tamper is brought in, which lifts the track up to the right level and then drops small metal fingers down in between the ties to push ballast underneath the ties to support it in the correct alignment. We're now standing on the crest of the Iowa Divide, just east of Arcadia, Iowa. We have gone about a little over 60 miles east from Missouri Valley, and the railroad has climbed about 300 feet. From here, we drop east down towards the Iowa River Valley and the bridge at Boone, Iowa, but we'll save that for another day. What we've just seen here was a mixed manifest train heading eastbound up over the crest of the grade. The train before it was a hot piggyback train with truck trailers on flat cars and a few tri-level auto racks as the front end carrying automobiles. We followed that up from the town of Denison, Iowa, just a few miles to the west of here, where it met a coal train that was heading westbound, another empty heading back towards the Powder River Basin. Well, on the way back to Omaha this afternoon, we had some good luck again. First thing we saw at Denison, Iowa was an unusual operation for this part of the country. It was an empty ore train, an iron ore train, on its way back to Minnesota from a steel mill in Geneva, Utah. It's the longest movement of iron ore in the country. We got to see the empties moving back east. Next thing we got to see, a little ways east of Missouri Valley, was an eastbound double-stack train for KLine, which is one of the international shipping lines which brings containers from the Far East to the United States. This particular train started out in Tacoma, Washington, where it was unloaded from the ships, and now it's on its way to Chicago. Now we find ourselves back where we started today. Behind me here is Union Pacific's piggyback yard, behind the old Union Station. On the other side of it is the old Burlington Station, and where Amtrak stopped this morning. What's going on right now is they're putting together the piggyback train that's going to head westbound for North Platte and the West Coast with all the trailers and containers that were loaded here in Omaha today. A good end to a long, exciting, and fun-filled day.